Good afternoon. Thanks so much for coming in to meet me. I'm John's teacher, Lydia McKinnon.
Hi, thank you. It's great to meet you, Lydia. I'm Katie. As you know, this is a big year for John. It's his first year in an actual school.
That's right. John was homeschooled up until this year, right?
He was, and we enjoyed doing that with him, but we always knew we'd want him in a regular school for high school. We thought starting him in grade 6 would be a good way to get him used to the classroom environment ahead of time.
I think that's a great idea, and John has been doing a wonderful job in the classroom. He's made friends easily, and he's a great help to me and his classmates. I've been very impressed by his effort and motivation.
That's great to hear. While he was being homeschooled, we made sure he did a lot of extracurricular things with other kids his age so that he'd get a social aspect as well. He plays a lot of sports and is very outdoorsy.
That's great. I'll have to pass on some information about our outdoors club to you and John then. They go on a camping trip at the end of the school year and do lots of day activities like learning to kayak and hike. I think you'd really enjoy that.
That sounds perfect. I'd love more info on that for sure.
Great. So, you recently received John's report card, and after looking it over, is there anything specific you had questions about?
I understood most of the report card, and we worked with John a lot at his homework and make sure he is doing well. So we already had a sense of what his grades would be. The section my husband and I were a little confused with was the learning skills and work habits section. Because John has been homeschooled for so long, we weren't familiar with this type of assessment.
We can absolutely talk about that. So I'll go through each of the learning skills and work habits on John's report card, explain what each one means, and then we can talk about how John is doing in that area.
Great, so let's start with independent work. I was surprised to see he got a satisfactory, considering he spent the first 6 years of school at home working independently.
So for independent work, we are assessing students to see if they're independently making plans for how to best complete their work, monitoring themselves to ensure they are following that plan, and we want to see that they are following instructions without needing the teacher to supervise. One aspect of this that John does very well is completing his tasks on time. He has some very impressive time management skills, and he is doing well in the other areas of independent work. But I think as he gets used to the classroom setting and adjusts to needing to self-direct more, now that he has one adult and 26 other classmates, he'll get stronger in this area.
I'm glad to hear he's doing well with time management. We can definitely give him some more space at home to get his work done without us. Okay, can you fill me in on collaboration now? My husband and I were worried about how well he'd work with other students since he's been homeschooled and is an only child.
Absolutely. So for collaboration, we're looking at how a student interacts and behaves within a collaborative setting. We want to see them accepting a variety of roles and taking on an equal amount of work as their peers are. And we also want to see them discussing their ideas with their peers, listening to what others have to say, and responding positively and productively. While I agree that John will need some time to get used to the group setting, and in my observations I have seen that he often struggles to resolve conflict when it arises, I have also noticed that he has a lot of great ideas to share, and he's excited to start discussions with his classmates and use his knowledge to contribute to whatever it is they're working on.
Oh, that's great. Can you think of an example of a time you saw him do that? I'm just curious to know what kind of things he's actually doing in the classroom.
Yeah, I actually have a group project here that he did that I have assessed, and it's something I observed him doing, and that observation contributed towards my assessment of his collaboration skills. The students were solving a complicated word problem in math together, and these are their notes. So John's work is in the purple writing, and I'll just show you it here. So here's that assignment that they did together, and this is the stuff that he would have worked on.
That's very neat. Thanks for sharing that.
So for collaboration, I've given John a satisfactory. He's headed in the right direction, and I think if I give him more opportunities to collaborate, the skill will definitely get stronger. I'd like to see him improve, particularly with his conflict resolution skills.
Okay, I think that's a great goal for him. Now that he's spending so much more time around other children his own age, I think he will have more chances to face conflict, so he will have to figure out how to deal with that properly, and my husband and I will definitely work with him at home to build up those skills.
So next we have initiative. When a student takes initiative, it means they're seeking out learning opportunities and they work towards developing new ideas. They're curious and interested in what they're learning, and they have a positive attitude towards a challenge or a new task.
That sounds great, and I'm happy to see John got it good for initiative. He was always curious as a little kid, and he loves learning and traveling and visiting places and museums and heritage sites.
He will love our field trip to the Science and Tech Museum this year then. So here I have an assignment that John did, and this was in science. So I gave him an option to either choose an experiment to research and do from a list I provided, or come up with one on his own. John didn't hesitate to take the initiative and plan out his own experiment. He was so excited to get started, and he had so many great ideas. So as you see here, this is his experiment plan that he worked on. And then he facilitated it and presented it to the class, and it went really, really well. And we were all very impressed.
Oh yes, I remember hearing all about this one at home. So is this something you assessed him in when you were choosing his mark for this learning skill?
Yes, exactly. So I always assess the students multiple times for each of the learning skills and work habits, so they have many chances to display how they're doing. We all have off days, as I'm sure you know, and when we aren't performing at our best. So I like to give students at least a second and third chance.
That's very good to know. I was curious about how these things were assessed.
Yeah, so I do the multiple assessments, and it's typically a simple observational assessment so I can see them in action. This means I watch them as they perform a task in class, complete an assignment or present something, work in a group, organize their work, and so on. And then I use a checklist as well as take notes to record how they're doing.
Very interesting. That sounds great. So next on his report card is responsibility, which he got a satisfactory for.
With responsibility, we're looking to see that the student completes their work on time, and as I said when we discussed independent work, John does very well in this area. We also want to see students fulfilling their responsibilities in the classroom, such as being a good classmate, keeping their desk tidy, and taking initiative with their class duty each week. Things such as turning the lights off when you leave the room, handing out worksheets, tidying the bookshelves, those kind of things. With this aspect, I have had to remind John frequently what his tasks are and when he should and can do them. Once he is reminded he has a great attitude about doing them, I would just like to see him remembering on his own more often.
What can we do to improve that?
You can give him a schedule to keep on his desk, and he can write out his own day plan for when he wants to complete certain tasks he has to complete. That means he's still in charge of remembering them on his own, but he has a tool to help him. This will also help him with his organization skills.
Ah yes, the organization one. Could we save that one for last? And the schedule sounds like a great idea. I can do something similar with him at home.
Yeah, we can definitely discuss that one at the end, and that would be a great idea. So next we have self-regulation then. And with this one, we want to see students setting their own goals, completing them, asking for help when it's needed, reflecting on their own strengths and weaknesses, seeking learning opportunities that will help them reach their goals, and working hard to get through challenges. John is doing satisfactorily in this area. As I have mentioned, he's very curious and will self-direct his learning towards something that interests him. He does a good job of seeking out more knowledge on things that he's into, and he sometimes communicates when he needs support, but I've observed that he will also sometimes sit and stop working rather than ask for help. We've done a bit of work as a class on self-assessment, and John hasn't fully engaged in these activities, but there will be more opportunities for that before the end of the school year. For example, after they did the group project I showed you earlier on, I had students fill out a rubric for how well they think they did, and then write notes on one thing they did well and something else they could improve on. So as you can see here, and I have the rubric for you to see here, John filled out the rubric, but he didn't identify a specific strength or weakness. He did very well on this assignment, so I'll try a different form of self-assessment for him next time.
Okay. We can check back in on that one at the end of the school year then. So now we are at organization, which you gave John a needs improvement. Do you mind giving me an in-depth description for that one? I want to take some notes.
Yes, absolutely. At the end of our meeting, I can also give you a link to a document with the learning skills and work habits so you can look at them again at home whenever you'd like, and you could also share that information with your husband. So for organization, students are expected to make and follow through with a plan for their work. They set their priorities effectively and finish work in a timely manner.
Well, you've said that John has great time management skills, so why would that need improvement?
Yes, he certainly does. So that's one specific area that he's done very well in this classroom, but the other areas really do need improvement. I'll be sure to explain to John that he is doing very well with time management, and to use that as motivation to know he has the ability to improve on the other aspects.
I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
So for organization, we're looking at how well the student uses the tools, resources, and information available to them to help them complete a task. So as I mentioned, when John is interested in something, he often already has a lot of knowledge on the topic that he can share with his classmates, and he comes up with lots of ideas. When I give him a specific task, at this time he requires reminders for me to get started and prompting to get him looking for information and resources, especially if it's something that he doesn't already know a lot about or maybe isn't initially as interested in. I've assessed him on this 3 times, and he has yet to complete this independently.
How could he be encouraged to do better with his organization in the classroom and at home? I have noticed that his room is usually messy, and I have tried to remind him 100 times to clean it. I thought that was normal for boys his age, though.
That can absolutely be typical. Organization is something a student develops and works on through all their years at school and just even throughout their lives in general, so he has lots of time to improve. In the classroom, I'll be giving him more responsibilities. He's shown that he can manage responsibilities, and that gives me the chance to set a goal with him to complete these tasks without any reminders and to make his own plan to complete them. Together, we'll also create a list of all the tools and resources, such as Chromebooks, library books, and textbooks available to him, so that when he's starting an assignment, he can use that list to point him in the right direction.
Okay, that sounds like it'll be really helpful for him.
At home, I'd suggest having him make his own schedule for completing things like homework and chores. Leave it up to him to stick to it and encourage him when he does. John seems to value the work he does, and he hasn't needed prizes or rewards in the classroom to encourage good behavior. He's responded well to positive feedback, and that has been enough to motivate him to continue to do well. I think we can both use that as a way to help him develop stronger organizational skills.
I think that could work for him. We will definitely give it a try. Thanks so much for taking the time to go over every single skill with me. I just have one more question. I'm curious to know why these learning skills and work habits are explicitly assessed. They seem like regular skills and habits we develop as we get older, and I'm not sure why they need to be formally assessed rather than just encouraged by the teacher.
That's a great question, and when I started teaching, I wondered the exact same thing. And now that I've been teaching for a few years, I've seen how beneficial the assessment of these skills can be for the teacher, parent, and especially for the student. There are many reasons why we formally assess them. So the first reason is so we can have clear communication with parents. This way, parents know exactly how their child is doing in the class, both with their academic progress and their progress with their behavior, skills, and habits.
It was very useful to be able to talk about these things so specifically and pinpoint exactly where John is very strong and where he needs improvement.
Exactly. So, rather than including these learning skills and work habits with their academic grades, we can see how they are doing with each separately. For example, a student may be struggling in math, and if we just had that academic achievement on the report card, we might not know exactly why they're struggling with math or how to help them. But with the learning skills and work habits, we could see that they need improvement in independent work, and we can now identify that the student is stronger in collaborative work but struggles independently, and math is a lot of independent work.
Ah, that makes sense to me. So John is doing very well in science, and you do a lot of experiments with the class, which takes the initiative from the students to get involved, and it also takes a lot of responsibility because they need to be safe and mature about conducting science experiments. So now I can see two of the reasons John is excelling in science.
That's a great example. Another thing I've seen the learning skills and work habits assessment be very useful for is being able to encourage and watch the progression of these skills and habits as the students go through school. So since there's a record of each year's learning skills and work habits on each report card, teachers and parents can monitor the progression each year. This allows us to more directly target areas that need strengthening and provide encouragement and feedback when a student is doing something well. This is essential for the student to succeed later on in high school, post-secondary, and in the workforce, where they won't have as much assistance or feedback and will need these skills and habits to do well.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. Okay, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for coming in. It was wonderful to meet you. I have your email, and I'll send you that link for a description of all the learning skills and work habits, and I'll also pass along the information about our outdoors club at the school here.
That'd be great. Thanks again. Good evening. Thank you so much for coming in. It's so nice to finally meet you. Sarah has told me so much about you. I'm Catherine Sutton.
It's nice to meet you too. I'm Lydia, Sarah's mother. Sarah really enjoys being in your class, and it's always interesting to hear about the science experiments you guys do.
Yes, well, science is one of my favorite subjects, so I try to make it as interesting for the students as possible. Did Sarah tell you last week we used Christmas lights and a battery to learn about circuits?
Yeah, she did mention that, and it's such a creative way to get students interested. I like that you're so into experiments. I really find it keeps the students' attention.
Sarah told me that you're originally from British Columbia. That's quite a move to come all the way here to Ontario.
Yeah, it sure was. So my husband's in the Canadian Navy, and he was originally stationed at CFB Esquimalt. He was offered a job helping with the Navy's training program at the headquarters in Ottawa, so that's why we moved here this summer.
That's an amazing opportunity. You must have gotten to see some beautiful scenery living in that part of the country. I've never been there, but BC is definitely one place I want to go for my bucket list.
We've gotten to see a lot of Canada for sure, and we've been so lucky to experience a lot of things, but it's been hard on Sarah having to move around a lot and change schools so frequently.
Of course, I can completely understand how that could be difficult for her to have to adjust to a new school time and time again. Well, I just wanted to let you know that we have received all of Sarah's academic information from her previous school, and I can assure you she's settling in just fine. Her grades are right on par with where she was last year, and I'm very happy with where she is in terms of her learning skills.
Back in Esquimalt, we had the grades portion of the report cards, but I don't know if we had the learning skills portion or not. What are learning skills?
Of course, so in Ontario there are 6 learning skills that we believe are very important for students to develop in order to become successful. The skills are responsibility, collaboration, organization, independent work, initiative, and self-regulation.
Okay, that makes sense. So how do you evaluate these? I see that you assign them letter grades on the report card.
Primarily we use observations of students, but I also use self-reflections that students create themselves. The students evaluate themselves based on a few statements and then every month make goals in areas they think they can improve in.
Oh, that's very clever. I like that you also take student input into consideration when developing the grades for these skills.
So let's have a look at Sarah's report card. Overall, she did very well in terms of her learning skills, but there are also some areas she can improve on. Sarah got an E in responsibility, independent work, and collaboration, and self-regulation sections. In terms of her initiative and organization, I gave her G's.
Why are some areas E's but others G's?
Sarah is a very innovative girl. She comes up with solutions to problems in unique ways, and she always has a very positive attitude in class, which makes it a pleasure to have her in my classroom. I would like to see Sarah take on more leadership roles in class and actively seek out opportunities to grow as a person and as a learner. In terms of organization, Sarah knows how to gather, identify, and evaluate information. She understands how to take this information and uses it to complete the task she's given. In the next term, I would like to see Sarah make plans to better use her time in time-sensitive situations. For example, I noticed that she sometimes gets flustered on tests and won't move past a question she gets stuck on. I would like to help Sarah develop the skills to be able to move on to the next question and come back to the difficult questions later.
Sarah's father and I do notice some of the same things at home, so how can we improve on these areas in order to help Sarah succeed?
Well, in terms of Sarah taking on more leadership roles in the classroom, I'm excited to tell you about a program we have going on in the school that I think would be perfect for her to develop her leadership skills. Our school board is hosting a conference that is all about peer leadership. They want to work with students who show leadership potential to help them develop their skills and take on more roles within their schools. They want to encourage students to take the responsibility and initiative to help others who may be struggling. Oh my God. They don't expect students to replace the teachers in their roles to support student growth, but instead be another resource that struggling students can reach out to for help. We would love if you would give Sarah permission to attend.
That sounds exactly like something Sarah would love to do. She participates in Girl Guides outside of school, and her leaders have shared with me that they would like Sarah to take on more leadership roles there as well.
Yes, I agree. That sounds like an excellent idea, and the skills Sarah will learn about at this course will be applicable in many areas, not just at school. It would be helpful if you could encourage her to take advantage of leadership opportunities and perhaps point them out when they present themselves. This can help Sarah learn to identify these opportunities on her own.
Excellent. I can do that, no problem. I'll tell Sarah's dad to do the same.
In terms of learning to manage her time better, I plan to sit down with Sarah and discuss the strategies she uses when she's working on time-sensitive work. I plan on encouraging her to move on to a new question if one stops her up, so she can keep flowing through the material. I want to explain to her that questions do not have to be done in numeric order, and if she gets stuck, I would rather her move on than not finish the work. When she's working on homework and gets stuck on a question, I'd like you to encourage her to do the same. That way she'll get into the practice of it and won't let one test question ruin her entire assignment.
I will certainly do my part at home to help Sarah out with these goals, and I hope to see a reflection of this on her next report card.
Well, at school we do our part to help her out as well. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me.
I certainly will. Thank you for your time, Ms. Sutton.